I'm Melissa from Practically Creative, and I just decided I'd pop on and go live. I've got some sewing I'm doing, a little bit of scrap fabric sewing, and I thought I would pop in, say hello, do a little update for those few people who actually want to hear anything. Welcome to live chat if you're here, and I'm just sewing some strips of fabric up. Kind of have an idea that I'm working on. I'll show you this once I get it sewn up here. So that's the first one. And I came in here and I discovered that I had some random strips of fabric. And I thought, oh, those will turn out cute. So here's my fabric. Just drape that one over my shoulder and go do the next one. Want to make some blocks. And I think what I'm going to do is incorporate them into a scrap quilt that I'm working on. Just a little of this and a little of that. Trying to get a bunch of these scraps out of my sewing room. 2023 was the year of the scrap, not 2024. Hi, Charlotte. Hi, Deborah. How are you guys today? But 2024 is turning out to be the year of the scrap, too. And I really wanted it to be the year of the bag. So I just thought I would, whoops, cut that thread, Melissa. I thought I would sew up some random strips of fabric and maybe cut them down into 2.5-inch squares. If you guys can see that. The vertical live format is not forgiving for sewers unless I turn it so that you can see my sewing machine and then you can't see me. So maybe you'd rather see my sewing machine than me. You're working on a new small project. What kind of project, Charlotte? Stitching could mean anything. Cross stitch or, hi Joe. Stitching could mean cross stitch or for you, knitting, crochet. I know you do all of that stuff. Or it could mean sewing. I was thinking earlier about how I do certain things because of my arthritis. I was actually talking to somebody. Hi, Nancy. How are you today? I was actually talking to somebody earlier, and she was like, I don't mind ironing, but when I'm doing quilting and you have to iron all the pieces, it can get frustrating pretty quickly. And I thought, well, how do I get around that? And how I get around that is with this little wool ironing mat. A lot of us have them. I lay it on top of my cutting table, and usually I put wood underneath it. I've got a cutting board. I usually just set it on top of the cutting board. I keep telling myself that I'm going to take it and attach the wool mat to the cutting board. Has anybody ever done that? I'm not sure how well that would work. Summer Stitch Camp badge. So it's cross stitch. Awesome. So what I'm doing now is I'm laying down my items that I just sewed on my cutting board. See if I can bring that up there for you guys to see it once I get it laid down. See that? The overhead light is really washing it out. So I'm going to lay it down on my cutting board, and then I'm going to make, at the 1-inch mark, I'm going to make a cut using the board itself or the mat itself to measure that. And then after that, I can use my ruler as my measuring guide rather than the mat. I think my ruler stays together better than the mat does in the long run. You never thought of putting a cutting board underneath the wool mat? Or of attaching the two together? I can't iron on the wool with my hand resting on it because it makes me itch. So I've got another wool cutting mat in the other room that works really well for me because I covered it with a fat quarter. I just made a little bag and pinned it to it. And what I'm doing is, as I go down through here, I'm just keeping each one of these lined up on one of the straight lines on the mat itself, making sure that everything stays straight, and then cutting out my blocks. I'll show you in a second. So, not so much about me, but how is everybody doing? I know I haven't been on a lot. I'm trying. I'm working on my house. I don't know if all of you know this, but during the pandemic, my husband worked from home for 3 years, which worked out really well because I was still recovering from some major sicknesses, so that helped us both out a lot. It gave me a full-time caregiver, but I'm back up to almost fighting for him now, and he's back out in the real world working. And man clean is different from woman clean, as we all know. So I'm now working on taking my house back from man cleaned. All right, and so here we are. I've cut them all into 2.5-inch pieces. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them so that the color faces the white and the white faces the color. And I'm going to sew up all these little 4-patch squares and put them together. So let me do one and I'll show you what it'll look like. And what I'm discovering with my husband now being back at work is I'm having to remember how to do a lot of things, or, well, I'm having to rebuild a new routine. I know how to clean, but before the pandemic, I had a routine. You know, Monday I washed and dried sheets and put them back on the bed and all that stuff. And I used to have this all in a routine. Garbage runs on Friday, so I need to clean out the refrigerator on Thursday, all that stuff. And I am just not in that routine anymore. Nancy, I am thrilled to see that Terry's scans are coming back good. So you see, and the one advantage of this is that you can see right up there. My points match perfectly there. So I'm going to sew all these up into 4 patches. And what is it with sewing? I always end up with thread everywhere. I am so thrilled that Terry is doing so much better. That's awesome. It's what I've been praying for too. is that he would survive it and end up just fine when it was all done. I have a good friend who is a retired New York City police officer, and last Friday she lost her husband. He had I don't even know where he was at, but he was just starting to get into politics. 54 years old. Thank you. I appreciate that, Joe. He was 54 and had a massive heart attack and was gone immediately. So I'm very thankful for my husband and just shocked for my friend Jean. I mean, you don't expect that, not at that age. That's just young. And of course, there's a Billy Joel song, Only the Good Die Young. And her husband, Mark, was all that was good. He was a combat veteran. He worked with um, immigration and naturalization at one point in his career. He was one of the, I think she met him. He was on the 911 commission, or I'm trying to think of how to put it, one of the consultants for them when they were investigating the crash of 911, 9/11. I mean, he was a really good person who'd just been elected a councilman in New York City, in whatever borough they live in. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, and they have I want to say that their daughter is 10, you know? So just in the prime of life, and he's gone. So don't take anything or anyone for granted, for sure. He was too good. I actually saw an interview with him several years ago. He was interviewed by like Good Morning New York or a program like that. And he talked about his involvement in Veterans Affairs. Very smart man. Very smart man. I was just amazed at how bright he was. And somewhere I have moved my daisy, so a little daisy cutter for my blocks. And I kind of just wanted to show how fast and easy this is. Because there's two, and I need to trim a little bit. That white strip I had was a little bit bigger, but I left it alone because I didn't want to end up with it too short. So I'll have to do a little bit of squaring up. But see how nice those points came out? And that's just from taking two scraps and sewing them together. Pretty, pretty. I don't know if and that one's got some hanging off, but see. So now I have, in just a couple of minutes and a couple of strips, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got enough to make a bigger block if I want. You've been looking for a scalloped rotary cutter. I don't know that are you looking for it for paper or? I don't know that I've ever seen one for fabric. I have scissors that have a scallop on them for paper. But what would what would a scalloped rotary cutter be used for? It's for fabric? Does it give you little bitty scallops or? I don't think I've ever seen that. You may have to give me more information there, Joe. I was a bad kid. I didn't close it. Because if you're cutting scalloped edges, there I just laid them all out. I don't know that that's how it's going to be put together, but there's 6 of them. I could do them in 4s really easily. I have a thing about teal and green fabric. So I thought that this would cut in blocks of 4 once I square them up. Or I could turn them like this and put some white squares in between them and then make it on point. It would look really cool. Let me get a little bit of trimming done here. Joe, now you've got me intrigued. Now I want to know what you would use a scalloped rotary cutter for. They cut charm blocks with it. So they were cutting charm blocks out, like out of bigger fabric to make charm blocks for themselves. Oh. I'm squaring up my little pieces here. So did they cut them to keep, because I know that I'm not a big fan of the edges, the little pointed edges that they put on like commercially cut charm blocks. But that might be a way to cut it so you don't have fiber dust, I guess is the right word, whenever you cut charm blocks out. Especially if you're cutting them at home from your own fabric. That little dust always makes me cough out of yardage. That's an interesting thing. I'll have to look and see if I can find a scalloped rotary cutter now. Who was doing it? I'm curious. Because I may have to go check out that video. Okay, so now that I've squared them all up, I'm going to put them together so light and dark touch again. And I'm nesting those seams right there. I'm going to do that twice with these, and then I'll join the 2 mini rows together. I think the chat on this live is delayed more than it is on the regular lives we do, because it seems to take a while. So if you've already answered me and I'm not answering back, it's because I think it's more delayed. One other thing I do when I sew these together is I don't take the thread apart, because I'm going to open it like this and like this. And I'm going to double check to make sure that all my blocks are where I want them. Then I'm just going to flip it over and wear more thread. But that little stitch in the middle that's holding the 2 blocks together kind of helps me keep everything lined up too. So now one more time to the sewing machine. think I may have missed a point there. I don't want to do that. I could pin it, but to quote Ginny Down, I'm lazy. I don't think she says she's lazy, but it's like my finger pins work pretty good most of the time. They didn't that time. But now that I've got that all sewn, I can bring my little wool mat back over here, sitting on top of the cutting board. And I can give it another quick press. I'm not going to worry about that point not matching, because by the time I work this into a quilt, nobody's going to notice. Let me show you what I've got there. It's just a little 16 square block, but I made it out of 4 strips of fabric, 4 strips of fabric that I was going to toss. Hi, Sylvia. How are you today? I'm just doing a little bit of scrap sewing here. Maybe I will fix that little center. I don't know. If I can do it the first time that I try to fix it, then I'll fix it. If I can't do it the first time, then it's going to stay the way it is. How's that? I can say I gave it the old college try and I tried again. And I don't have to feel too guilty. You're doing okay today? That's a good thing. I'm glad to hear that. Nancy was just sharing good news about Terry, too. My little surgical snips that I use, they work really well for stuff like this when you just want to snip a few threads. You don't want to make everything come apart. I am going to back stitch though, real quick. I think I said it right. Just to make sure that my seam stays together there. Yeah, it's back stitch, not backspace. I don't know, does anybody even backspace anymore? Do they teach you that? I learned about the importance of double spaces and backstitching when I took typing in high school. And nobody even seems to know what I'm talking about when I use those terms anymore. I got a little closer, but it's not perfect. You know what? It's fine. If anybody is that close to your quilt to be looking and finding those little errors, they need to go home, even if it's your mother-in-law. I tell my daughter-in-law this stuff all the time. My son has been sick and she has been taking really good care of him. And then she messaged me and she's like, I feel like such a failure. I'm like, hey, you put up with him through him being sick and you didn't kill him. You're a success in my book. I had one of those mother-in-laws, so I never wanted to be one of those mother-in-laws. All right, so now we've got one block. And if I want to do variations here, like for instance, I still have some of this light green left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out how big my block is on my little measuring thing. And my block is 4.5. So what I'm going to do is out of my little piece of fabric that I've got left, because this was a fat quarter to start with. So there wasn't a whole lot of fabric there. You had an amazing mother-in-law. I thought mine was amazing for a few years, and then later I found out that she wasn't. I was disappointed, very disappointed. 2, 3, 4.5. And if you're measuring, especially if you're using the board to measure, I not only look at the numbers, then I also count it by hand. And the reason I do that is because I've got my fabric starting on the 1 here. And if I just went up to 4.5, it would be too small. So I made sure to count my 4.5 and 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And lay your ruler out. And I've got this left from the 2 little pieces. I am not throwing it away. I like the way this fabric has lighter and darker places in it. So I will definitely use that in something applique-wise. And then I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm like, why didn't I do this? So here's what I'm going to do. For the next little block, put 2 of those blocks that I made with the squares and then a couple of pieces of the other fabric out of the block, and I'm going to sew that together. And then I'll have 2 blocks that are in a similar colorway, but not identical. And then I can either continue on using the same color fabric, or I can use some of the other Northcott fabrics that I've got, because that's the Northcott Stonehenge line. I got it in a box from a subscription. And I'm pretty sure the subscription was from So Yeah. I don't shop there anymore, but they did have some nice fabrics. And I heard that they just opened a 3rd store, so congratulations to them. That's amazing. But if I use Stonehenge for all of these blocks, then they all coordinate even if they aren't the same colors. You know what I mean? Because they're all a similar kind of pattern. And I think I have everything to all the way down to pink in this. Maybe even a blue. I made my little design board I just showed you from a Lori Holt tutorial. They sell these, I think, at Fat Quarter Shop, $6 or $8 a piece. And mine is basically 10 by 10. And I made my own with a piece of Dollar Tree foam board. Cost me, I don't know, $1 for the foam board, and then I had to use a little bit of batting, and I had some tape is what I used around my duct tape. The only bad thing about working in a very small space is that you have to keep moving things around. That's one of the things I've been working on, is trying to get that all taken care of. Trying to figure out some better ways for things to work. Where did I get the other one? Here we go. And now see, these could go in a quilt side by side any way I wanted. And I could use those other fabrics from Stonehenge and do other blocks and use this same white as the background all the way through. I think that would be really cute. And obviously my 4.5 was a little generous because I've got a little extra over on that side. So all I'm going to do is real quick, I'm just going to take my ruler and my rotary cutter and I'm going to trim that up so it's all even. This is how you create your own patterns for things, where you end up with something that's absolutely and totally yours, is because you've sat there and gone, I have this, I have that. Let's create a whole new block that's all mine. Let's see. Yeah. Trying to make sure that when I put this together, that I have a colored block attached to a white block. I hope that my daughters-in-law will feel the same, Sylvia, that they had an amazing mother-in-law. I think that's important for people, is to have somebody who supports you no matter what. My favorite question, especially with like my stepdaughters and stuff, is when they're calling me and they're like, oh, I'm, down about something to do with the marriage or the kids. And I wish more people thought to ask this, is I ask them, do you want sympathy or do you want solutions? Because while I may have some real life experience in whatever it is that they're going through, um, sometimes they don't really want your advice. They just want you to say, oh, you're doing so well. And I think that's important, to make sure you know the difference. And if you're a younger woman out there listening, don't just blame it on your mother-in-law. Um, if you call them about something, you need to say, I really want to vent about this today, but I just want sympathy. Or I really want to vent about something and I need a practical solution for how to fix this. I used to call my mother-in-law. My mom wasn't the best parent. Have a great day, Joe. And so, you couldn't call my mom up and ask questions about child discipline because my mom believed in spare the rod and spoil the child. And so that was always her solution. Oh, light his butt up, he'll act better. My mother-in-law would come up with more creative stuff than that. So there's our little block we made. That's 2 strips, 2.5 inch wide, maybe 16 or 18 inches long, and then 2 4.5 inch squares. And actually I had to trim it a little bit. But there we've got 2 blocks put together. And I can go through that box of North. Why can I not remember it? That Stonehenge fabric from Northup, and put these together and make a little quilt. This would be cute as a baby quilt for a boy or a girl. Would be cute if you worked it into a table runner or into a couch quilt, lap quilt. Hi, Tracy. How are you today? I was thinking about you earlier. I was on vidIQ and they were doing channel reviews. And they've got a Discord link. So I went on to Discord. And I was like, I got to talk to Tracy sometime today. And then I decided to go live. But anyway, so I've got that one sitting here. And I've got this one. This is out of a different fabric, but it's also scraps. I've just been making scrap blocks. Oh, I forgot that today was Cross Stitch Tuesday. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to walk on Laura Lynn. Well, I'm not walking on Laura Lynn's feet. She don't need to be there. I didn't even think about it being Cross Stitch Tuesday, though. Sorry, Laura Lynn, if you're out there watching. But I'm just making random blocks. I have more than enough pot holders put together, at least the tops of them, that I don't need to make any more. And I've got 2 sitting here. This is what started me. I was looking at scrap fabric thinking I need to put some binding on these. And then I got started making scrap blocks and forgot about the binding. So I need to sit down and do that here in a little bit. But those won't take me 10 minutes to bind up and put in the kitchen. And then I've got a project. I'm trying to get my other sewing table cleared up enough so that I can go ahead and do the quilting on one of my 30 quilt tops, which Tracy will call me out on if I don't mention how many I have. So I can get some quilting done on at least one of them. And I actually have 2 that I want to finish right this minute. So, all right, guys. I am going to say bye. I just wanted to do basically one of these quick lives and see what it looks like. And make up a couple of scrap blocks. You know how that goes. All right, so let's see. I have got a video I've got to film this afternoon. And once that's filmed, I'm going to go take a nap. But Sylvia is putting it, Sylvia's putting links in there for the moderators. And I'm going to give her a shout out. Sylvia's got a bunch of shorts up, and she put up her dynamic duo block late last week, just like I did. So if you haven't checked that out already, please go look at it. Oh, thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate it. And I will be, let's see, next month's theme is what, Sylvia? House? Not House MD, house as in a house. We're going to use it as a theme. We're going to do that. And then Miss Colleen is, cross our fingers, working on filming a video to get put up soon. Soon to her may mean 3 months. It may mean 3 days. I don't know for sure. But keep your eyes open for that. And I need to do some work in here with cameras and with that light, because that, I have a halo. See? My pretty little halo. Yeah, but Colleen's got one coming out. And then, in case anybody didn't notice, this is driving me insane. Wayne bought me a bunch of shirts. They're all green, and they're perfect except for the collar right here. So I need to put plackets in a couple of shirts. I may film that for you guys. I think I've done it on live, but I don't know that I've ever put it out as a video by itself. So, did you get everybody in there now, Sylvia? I know. It's comfortable. That's the big thing. And no, I don't like crew necks. I'm gonna, there's 2 more. So I've got 3 of them I need to put plackets in. And this might volunteer to be a placket for this shirt. What do you think? I like that color. That would look cute on this. He bought me 3 shirts in 3 shades of green, so I got to find some other greens for the others. Yeah, wouldn't that be pretty? So I think that may be on the agenda this afternoon. All right, I have been on here almost 40 minutes. It just feels like I just started. I could sit here and ramble all day. We all know that, right? Or an aqua. I'll have to see what I've got in aqua. That's kind of a teal and green combination. That darker color isn't blue like it shows on the camera. It's more of a green. I'll just have to play with it whenever I get ready to do it. So I'm going to, 10 people watching. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry if you just showed up. I'm just getting ready to wrap up. I appreciate you guys all coming and watching. Yeah, that green is not the right color of green. I appreciate you watching. If you want to see more from me, please give me a like and a subscribe. And I will talk to you all very soon. Look for me on Friday, if not before. Bye for now. Bye, guys. And I don't know how to kill this. There we go.